Look at your hand. Right now, look at it. The shape of it. The lines on the palm. The way the fingers bend. Now consider this. If you put that hand next to a chimpanzee's hand and removed all the context, most people couldn't tell you which was which. Scientists who compare the two genomes, depending on which parts they measure, which variations they count, find an overlap somewhere between 95% and 99%. The exact number is debated. What isn't debated is what sits inside the gap. That small slice of difference is responsible for philosophy, for architecture, for the fact that one of those hands is holding a phone right now, watching a video about itself, and the other one is fishing termites out of a mound with a stick. Scientists have spent decades trying to understand what that gap actually means. The answer is stranger than you think. And smaller. Here's what nobody tells you when they hand you that statistic. For most of human history, the way we've answered the question, what makes us different from animals, has said less about animals than it has about us. Every generation picks a line, a bright, clean boundary between human and beast, and every generation, science erases it. For centuries, the line was tools. Humans use tools. Animals don't. Simple, clean, satisfying. Then, in 1960, Jane Goodall watched a chimpanzee named David Greybeard strip the leaves from a twig and use it to fish termites out of a mound in Gombe Stream National Park, Tanzania. She reported it to her mentor, the paleoanthropologist Louis Leakey. His response became one of the most quoted lines in the history of science. Now we must redefine tool, redefine man or accept chimpanzees as humans. He wasn't joking. The tool line was gone. So the line moved. Language, then. Humans have language. Animals communicate, sure, but not with syntax, not with grammar, not with the ability to discuss things that aren't immediately in front of them. Then researchers at Georgia State University's Language Research Center taught a bonobo named Kanzi to communicate using a symbol board. He didn't just learn symbols. He combined them in novel ways. He understood spoken English at roughly the level of a 2.5-year-old human child. A bonobo, 2.5. Let that compete with whatever you were doing at 2.5. The language line blurred. Culture, then. Humans have culture. Shared learned behaviors that pass between generations. Except chimpanzee communities have been documented with distinct regional traditions, different nut-cracking techniques, different grooming rituals, different tool use methods that vary from group to group and are transmitted across generations exactly the way human cultural practices are. Different chimp populations, different cultures. The culture line dissolved. Emotion, grief. Elephants return to the bones of their dead and touch them with their trunks. They hold vigils lasting hours. Researchers have documented elephant mothers carrying dead calves, unable or unwilling to leave them behind. In 2018, a killer whale named J35, recorded by researchers with the Center for Whale Research, carried her dead calf for 17 days and over 1,600 kilometers of ocean. 17 days. If you need that explained, you've never lost something you loved. Morality, then. Surely morality. The capacity to distinguish right from wrong, to feel guilt, to act against your own self-interest for the benefit of a stranger. Surely that's the line. In 2003, primatologist Frans de Waal and colleague Sarah Brosnan published a study in Nature. They gave capuchin monkeys a task. Complete it, get a cucumber. Fine. Except when the monkey in the next cage completed the same task and received a grape, a considerably better deal. The cucumber monkey threw the cucumber back. Not once, consistently. More than 50% of the time, they refused to participate at all. A capuchin monkey rejected unequal pay. Plato didn't figure that out until he was 40. De Waal called this the building blocks of morality. Not metaphorical morality, the actual behavioral and neural foundations that human moral systems are built on. The morality line didn't blur, it shattered. Stop for a second. We've spent the last few minutes watching every human-animal distinction collapse one by one. Tools, language, culture, grief, morality, all of it, In animals, all of it gone as a dividing line, which means we've been asking the wrong question. What makes us different from animals assumes there's a clean answer. A trait, a feature, a checkbox we have, and they don't. But what if the difference isn't a thing? What if it's a direction? What if it's not what we have, but where we're pointed? The most honest answer science has right now points not to a single moment, but to a cluster of changes happening over hundreds of thousands of years that combined into something genuinely unprecedented. Not one thing, a constellation. And the most important element in that constellation is something so mundane you'll almost miss it: time. Specifically, mental time travel, the ability to project yourself into the past and future, to remember not just what happened, but to re experience it as though it's happening now. To imagine not just what might happen, but to actually feel the fear or anticipation of a future that doesn't exist yet. Psychologist Endel Tolving, who coined the term in 1985, called this episodic memory. The capacity to mentally travel to specific personal experiences in the past and to simulate possible futures. Other animals plan. Scrub jays hide food and return for it later. Chimpanzees select tools for tasks they won't perform until tomorrow. Impressive. But the evidence suggests it's domain-specific, wired for survival tasks. What humans do is different in kind, not just degree. We build cathedrals that take 3 centuries to complete. We plant trees whose shade we will never sit in. We write letters to people who haven't been born yet. We lie awake at 3 a.m., worried about things that happened 15 years ago, and things that might happen 15 years from now. No other animal is kept awake by its own past. No other animal, as far as we can tell, rehearses its own death. This capacity to unstick yourself from the present and live in imaginary time appears to be the engine behind almost everything we consider uniquely human. Language evolved in part to share mental time travel. "Remember when the river flooded" is a useless sentence if the listener can't mentally reconstruct a past they didn't witness. Culture is accumulated mental time travel. The experiences of people long dead, transmitted forward into futures they couldn't see. Religion is mental time travel extended toward infinity. Art is mental time travel made physical. Every cave painting at Lascaux, made approximately 17,000 years ago, was made by someone who could imagine a viewer they would never meet. Someone stood in a cave in what is now France, painting a horse by firelight, and thought, "Someone will see this. Someone who doesn't exist yet will stand here and understand what I meant." That's not animal behavior. That's a completely different category of thing. Now, here's the part that almost nobody includes in this conversation, and it's the part that changes everything. You know what else requires mental time travel? Lying. To lie to someone, you have to model their current belief. Imagine the false belief you want them to have. Simulate their future reaction, and construct a story that bridges all 3. That's advanced mental time travel applied to social manipulation. Chimpanzees show some capacity for tactical deception, but nothing approaching the layered, premeditated, narrative lying that humans do casually before breakfast. The same cognitive upgrade that let us build civilizations also made us extraordinarily good at deceiving each other. Evolution handed us a superpower and a weapon at the same time. It didn't ask which one we wanted. This capacity may have emerged not from a single mutation, but from a feedback loop. Language made mental time travel more precise. More precise mental time travel made language more necessary. Social groups got larger because you could now coordinate with people you'd never met, people you only knew through shared stories. Larger groups created more pressure for social intelligence, which fed into more sophisticated theory of mind. Theory of mind is the ability to model what other people are thinking, to imagine the world from inside someone else's perspective. It is essentially mental time travel applied to other people's inner lives, and that capacity, more than tools, more than language, more than any single trait, may be what most clearly separates us. Because here's the thing, a chimpanzee can use a tool. A chimpanzee cannot, as far as researchers can determine, imagine what it would feel like to be the termite. Now, here is the part that should unsettle you slightly. All of this, the mental time travel, the theory of mind, the capacity to imagine futures and inhabit other perspectives, all of it came with costs that no other animal appears to pay. Anxiety. Not the acute fear response that every animal has, the jolt of adrenaline when a predator appears. That's useful. That's fine. What humans got instead is the chronic, low-level dread of things that haven't happened yet and might never happen. Researchers sometimes describe generalized anxiety disorder as mental time travel gone wrong, a future simulation engine that won't turn off. No other animal lies awake catastrophizing. No other animal needs to. Depression with a specific texture. Not just low energy, but the particular grief of imagining a different life. Of comparing the life you have to the life you could have had. Of mourning a version of yourself that never existed. Other animals experience states that resemble depression, but the human version is saturated with narrative, with counterfactual. What if I had chosen differently? No other animal can ask that question. And then there's existential dread. The knowledge, arriving sometime in childhood and never fully leaving, that you are going to die. That everyone you love is going to die. That everything you build will eventually be dust. Other animals respond to immediate death threats. Only humans lie awake at night afraid of a death that might be 40 years away. The big brain that let us build civilization also handed us the bill. Nobody told us what it would cost. The cultural anthropologist Ernest Becker argued in his 1973 book, The Denial of Death, which won the Pulitzer Prize posthumously in 1974, that virtually everything humans have ever built is at its core a response to this knowledge. Religion, culture, art, legacy, the obsessive drive to leave something behind. All of it an attempt to be, in some way, more than mortal, to make a mark that outlasts the body. When a chimpanzee uses a tool, it is solving a problem. When a human builds a monument, they are solving a different problem, the problem of knowing they will die. So when did humans stop being animals? The honest answer is, we didn't. Not cleanly, not in a moment, not along a single line. What happened was more like a volume dial being turned up slowly, over hundreds of thousands of years, until the signal became something new without ever becoming something entirely else. The animal is still in there. It shows up in the threat response that fires before you can think. In the status anxiety, you feel walking into a room full of strangers. In the way your body reads a sunset as beautiful before your mind can explain why. You didn't choose any of that. It runs on older code. But something was layered on top. Something that no other species on this planet appears to carry in quite the same configuration. The ability to live in time that doesn't exist yet. To be haunted by the past and terrified of the future. And still choose, somehow, to plant the tree. To stand in a dark cave 17,000 years ago, press your hand against cold stone, and start to draw. Not because you had to, not because it helped you survive, because somewhere in that gap, that 1 to 5% between you and the chimpanzee, something decided that the person who would find this painting, thousands of years from now, deserved to know you were here. That's not the absence of animal. That's animal, plus something the universe had never quite tried before. The question isn't when we stopped. The question is, what we're going to do with what we became.